Hi everybody, it's me Ash, and I am here with part 3 of Greyson's story, and this is Some Things Were Different. That's what I'm going to call this one. So being a mom of 2 older children, I know what certain milestones are to be met. So at 5 months old, I noticed he wasn't doing what the other kids would do at 5 months old. He also had full body tremors, which scared us, and it scared him because when he'd have them, he would freak out. And they're most common for whenever he woke up. And his full body tremors would be literally full body, his head, his arms, his legs, his whole body. It was a very scary situation. At this time, children are usually eating baby food. He was not eating baby food, and he was still super small for his age. An average 5-month-old baby would be around 16 pounds. He was only 10. Still today, an average 4-year-old, he's 4 now, would be 40 pounds and 40 inches, and he is only 29 pounds and 30 inches. My 1-year-old nephew weighs more than him. So, I went to the pediatrician and I said, something's wrong. We went, this is not right. I feel like there's something that we're missing that could potentially be something harmful to him. I was scared. I didn't understand why he was having these tremors and stuff like that. So the pediatrician recommended us to go to a neurologist, a plastic surgeon, and I'll explain the plastic surgeon later, physiatry, which is for, children to walk and stuff like that, and whatnot. So we went to neuro. Neuro was our first step. And they looked him over. They did CAT scans, CTs, MRIs, lots and lots of blood work and stuff like that. They thought he was having seizures due to the full body tremors and staring spells. He was also having those. And all the the CT, the CAT scan, EEGs, I forgot about that. We had a 24-hour EEG. All of that came back fine. So the next step was to go to plastic. And what I mean by the plastic surgery is because of Greyson, his head. If you won't notice it as much now in the videos, but if I get pictures out and show you guys, you would notice it. But from the profile view, his head and his forehead would come out at a point like this and not flat like how ours is. His has a point, and that's due to his skull fusing together in too many spots. Your skull fuses together, I think, in 3 spots, and his is at 5 spots. So they thought maybe his skull, it was putting pressure on his brain a certain way to cause these issues. The plastic surgeon said that even if that was the case, there's nothing that he could really do by now, and the surgery would be more cosmetic than anything. The damage would have already been done. And me and my husband decided that, I'm not going to put my son through a surgery that can potentially hurt him more developmentally wise, or possibly kill him just for some cosmetic stuff, or just because things are already done and nothing can fix it. So we decided not to have that surgery, and that is called craniostenosis. So that's his first diagnosis, was craniostenosis. Next, we went to physiatry. Greyson's muscles were spazzing. They were too tight, and stuff like that. And we were told that Greyson would never walk. And if he did, it would be with help of leg braces, or a walker, or even be in a wheelchair. I was not taking that as an answer. Yes, my baby would have been perfectly fine in that, but I was not taking that as an answer. My son will walk, he will run, he will play with other children, is how I felt. And so we started off with leg braces. His braces came all the way up to his knees, and they had special shoes, and his poor little body just couldn't take it because the braces were so heavy and those shoes were so heavy, and he was just so little that it wasn't helping at all. So I got into talking with my pediatrician for therapy services for him. I had 2 amazing therapy people come out to my house twice a week for 2 years. And if it wasn't for them, Miss Kelly and Miss Lori, I don't think my son would be walking. So he started therapy in PT and OT and speech and feeding therapy. The first year of his life, he was in braces. He had to have a helmet because the full body tremors would make him fall and hit his head. He had a walker, and we still had no answers as to what could have caused this. So then, finally at 1, we were able to see a genetics specialist. So a genetic specialist is pretty much, they'll find anything by looking through your blood. So we went to genetics, and they threw out a couple options, that it was either cerebral palsy, Fragile X, or Williams syndrome, and epilepsy. So we did all the tests for that stuff. And when you do tests like this, you don't get answers right away. You have your blood work done, you have your blood drawn, you have to wait 2 weeks for insurance to approve, if your insurance approves or not. Luckily, I had a backup insurance for Greyson. He has a insurance called BCMH. It's his Bureau of Mental Handicapped Children, and they pretty much pick up every expense that our personal insurance does not pick up. So we had those tests done, and we had eye testing done, and we had hearing testing done to rule out that it was his eyes and his ears that were causing him for the staring spells and not responding to us while during these staring spells wasn't because of, his eyes or his ears. And all of that testing, everything came back fine. So then we did another test, and this was a higher spectrum test. So this one, they needed my blood, his dad's blood, and his blood to compare all of us together, to compare me and dad together to see if our blood caused his blood to do something different, and so forth. And that is when we got his actual diagnosis. And his actual diagnosis is SCN1A gene, also known as Dravet syndrome. And I held off this video this long because I was going to make this in February when we went to his last genetics appointment, because we got they called us and said, and we found this out when he was 3 years old, so it took us 3 years to find out what this is. But this also still does not tell us why he's still so developmentally delayed. Um, so SCNA1 gene is a genetic disorder passed down through his dad, which we found out that his dad also has it, and he never knew it his whole entire life. And we didn't know much about his actual family because my husband is adopted, so everybody that had any information about anything on his real family would be his mother, who adopted him, and sadly she passed away before all of this testing happened with Greyson. I'm not going to go too much into the SCN1A gene, also known as Dravet syndrome. If you want to know in-depth details of that, there's plenty of channels, plenty of videos here on YouTube, and plenty of articles on Google that you can look up. But pretty much what it is it causes seizures. And so at 3 years old, that was devastating to us, but then again, it was a sigh of relief because now we know and what to look for. And SCN1A gene, it can go in different ways. You can go your entire life and not have a seizure at all, as my husband. You can go your entire life and then all of a sudden get seizures. Or you can have seizures starting off as a baby and then they die down, or they just keep going. So we feel that those full body tremors were part of the actual seizures, but they just weren't strong enough to be picked up on, his EEG and stuff like that. Another thing that we're happy that we know about this is if he was to develop seizures, that there's 2 forms of medications that they have to mix together to help with these seizures. All the other seizure medication would make it worse. So that is something that we are very happy about. So in February, I got a call stating that, and because it's so rare, they didn't know anything about it, so that's another thing, is like we still didn't really know. Well, after a year, coming up until February, we got a call saying that they got more information about Greyson's genetic mutation, that to come in, and that they really wanted to talk to us about it. So we were so nervous going into this appointment, because they don't just tell you the things over the phone. They want you to come in for an appointment and sit you down and have an in-deep conversation. They wanted to see where his developmental level was, and up his charts and stuff like that. So on Valentine's Day, we went back to genetics, and we got good news and we got some bad news. So good news is that they found out that SCN1A gene has different areas. You can have them really bad, you can have them so lightly, and this and that, and blah blah. And it's different parts of the chromosome that the mutation is on that will tell you this. With his part of his mutation on the chromosome, his was considered benign. I think it was benign, or benign, which means, like with chemo, benign would be it's not cancerous, malignant would be. Which means that instead of him having a 50-50 chance of having or developing seizures, was dropped down to only a 5% chance of him having seizures. So that was the good news. Bad news is they still don't have the reason as to why Greyson is so far behind developmental wise and why he's so tiny. Granted, his dad is a very tiny person. He weighs like 100 pounds, and I'm short. I'm only 5'1", and before I had children and everything that I went through, I was very tiny too, but he's still too tiny. So we had to do more blood work between all three of us for a bigger microarray. We're also working with developmental science to see if he has autism, which I think he does, but that doesn't make him any less of a blessing that he is. So that is part 3 to the story, and I'm going to go into one more part, and then after this I have another genetics appointment in June to find out what his blood work and our blood work came back as. So when that comes out, then I will do another video to update you guys on that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do part 4, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.